Good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. It is the 3rd of December. I know we're getting closer and closer to Christmas. Slowly, slowly, but we are getting closer and closer to Christmas. This morning, I had Christmas carols playing and I was singing away. But before that, I had a friend of mine in Canada calling me to tell me that she'd been at a concert and she was singing in the concert Christmas carols, and then I thought, oh, Christmas carols. And I put some on myself, and I like the old classic Christmas carols that but you ask for them to be put on, and you don't get what you ask for. But anyway, but I was singing along just the same. And one of the things I love to do at Christmas is somewhere around, the week before Christmas, I love to go find a nice big old church where they're having some sort of a carol service, as we call it a carol service in England. I don't know what they do in America, but find a carol service going on and go in there. And the reason I like to find a big old churches because there are lots of people. Because if I go to a smaller church, I have a very loud singing voice, so I tend to drown people out. So if I go where there are lots of people, I can blast out to my heart's content, sing as loud as I possibly want to, and just be joyful in singing my Christmas carols. And very few, only the people who are just around me will hear me singing out joyfully and exuberantly and all of that stuff. Right. So before we before we begin, let's first of all say good morning to Grey Eagle, who is, as always, standing to my right side here, and let's say good morning to Chris. Chris, good morning.
Hi, Rosemary. Boy, I can see why people up north come down here in the winter because, boy, those skies and the temperature out there are sure nice.
The skies are blue. There's a breeze. One of my neighbours opposite has got a flag, which is flying high and blowing in the breeze, which is so always nice to see. It gives me an idea of, so it's still warm. It's beautiful. It's probably in the mid 70s. I didn't check this morning, but nice cool breeze as you go outside. It's fresh. It's clean. It's wonderful. Oh gosh, you couldn't be in a better place. Having said that, I know, having lived in Vermont for so many years, I know that at this time of year, people flock to Vermont. They wear their heavy sweaters and their thick scarves and their big, heavy um, jackets and hats and gloves, and they go up onto the mountain, and they don't mind being freezing cold at all. Now, I love skiing. This may surprise you all, but I really love to go skiing. You're all wondering where I'm going with this, aren't you? So my idea of a perfect day of skiing is, while everybody else puts on their skis and their winter coats and all the rest of it, I take off my winter coats and all the rest of it because I'm now in the ski lodge, where there's usually a big roaring fire and a big long bar where I sit and I can look out of the window and I can watch all the skiers coming down the slopes, and I can watch the snowboarders coming down the slopes, and I can wrap my hands around a beautiful hot chocolate, or I can wrap my hands around a really thick ham and pea soup and feel warm and cozy and still watch this stuff going on. And also, of course, after dinner or after lunch or whatever, I can wrap my hands around a very nice brandy. And I love skiing. I love going skiing. You can see why, can't you? Because I sort of just indulge myself in all that hot chocolate, pea soup, brandy, Christmas stuff. Yes, 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 yes. Would you ever catch me out on the slopes? Absolutely not. But I know that while I'm sitting in Florida in the warm with breezes and blue skies and so on and so forth, there's so many people, everybody on the mountain is loving that crisp, nice, fresh snow and all of that stuff that just makes me shiver. I love to watch it. I love to see them coming down the mountain. while I'm sipping on my brandy. Of course, I love all of that stuff. It's very picturesque. But then I have to go out, get in the car with my heavy boots and my big jacket. No, thank you. No, I've been there and I've done that. And for all of you who are now, I hope you're sitting by a nice crackling fire, I'm going to send you probably. I'll either do it on Instagram or I shall do it. We'll do do that those little uh, little, I don't know what they call them, little tiny movies, maybe a 1 minute movie, a 2 minute movie. I'm going to send you one of those on Instagram in the next couple of days and let you see and let you see my crackling fire and my wonderful fireplace. And I'm going to probably, as I'm filming this for you, I'm going to be probably sipping on a hot chocolate thinking, geez, it feels cozy in here with the fire and I need my hot chocolate with my marshmallows. Greg was saying to me, don't forget the marshmallows in your chocolate, which of course I do like those little teeny tiny marshmallows in my chocolate. So I'm going to send you a picture of that. I also am going to, I'm not sure if I'm going to do this before Christmas or when I get back from New York, but I'm going to be making my famous, I say famous, everybody I know knows about it and everybody I know loves it. I'm going to be making my, perhaps not famous, but very beloved ham and pea soup. And we'll make a video of it so that you can see how I make mine. And then I promise you, it's going to be so delicious that you'll just want to make a whole big pot of it for yourselves. All right, enough of all of the food and enough of Christmas for a little bit. It is story time today, and I do have a story for you. I was going to tell you a story about what happened when Chris and I went to the nail salon a few days ago. But actually, I'm saving that one. I might tell you that story. It's a funny story and a good story. But I think I might save that one till next week because I've already thought of another story that I want to tell you, which is sort of more of a, I don't know if it's a Christmas story, but it's a story of healing. And as yesterday afternoon we did our healing show. Those of you who've missed it, go to YouTube, you can find it. And it's more about, it's a story about healing and yes. And of course, it's also, we're gearing up to my healing, um, what do you call it, a seminar or a workshop? I don't know.
Webinar.
It is a webinar, and so I am gearing up for that, which is on the 17th of December. If you didn't get your tickets yet, you can find them on my website. Go to my website, it'll tell you exactly where to go for tickets. I don't think they're terribly expensive, and I shall be talking on the 17th of December about healing, as I did a little bit yesterday. And for those of you who are interested, go to the YouTube channel and you can see, you can rewind and you can see what we're up to. All right, so Chris, before I begin the story, I think I've given lots of time for people to sort of click on, check in, come into the show. So, of course, I'm going to ask my usual: is there anybody there?
There are, Rosemary. Dean's here, and Tracy, and Barb, and Loretta, and Judy. We had, oh, who was it? Somebody's here from Paris. Tracy's from Paris. We have people here from the Netherlands. Wayne says it's negative 22 degrees at his reservation.
Is that Fahrenheit or Celsius? But where is the reservation? Wayne, where are you? We want to know where you are. Um, don't do you hate it or do you love it? I want to know. Do you love the cold? Are you into that outdoor stuff that people do in the wintertime? Or are you one of those curled up by the fire cozy and you're not going to put your nose out of the door until spring comes? I want to know. Are you a hibernator? Do you like the warm or do you love to go out there in the cold and the snow and all of that stuff? So, yeah, let us know. So, all right, anything else going on, Chris, before we begin our story time?
Lots of talk about your hot chocolate and how you make it.
Hot chocolate?
And
Oh,
yeah.
oh, come on. Always with milk. Always. Always with milk. I know a lot of people make hot chocolate with water, but I do not. I make it with milk. A really good chocolate, or a really, a good quality cocoa, or a really good chocolate. Ghirardelli I like, and of course we've got the Bourneville is also good. But all you have to do is heat up the milk and add the chocolate. Yeah, I do. You know me well. I do have a little trick for the hot chocolate. I always like to put the hot chocolate in a jug. I like to make it in a jug, so we've got at least 3 or 4 cups going with the hot chocolate. So what I do is I put the chocolate um, in a little bowl, and I mix it to a sort of a runny paste, because I hate it when it's lumpy. And then I mix it to a little paste, and then with cold milk, then I heat the milk, pour it over, stir it up, heat it up again. Bingo! It's what can I say? It's the easiest thing in the world. But I do. For those of you who are dieting, I do use full fat milk, because that's how you get it nice and rich. But you don't have to use any milk you like, but it works as well, and it is yummy, 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 and delicious. It really is. And of course, you get those little tiny, tiny marshmallows. You can make your own, but I wouldn't ever bother to do that. You get those little tiny marshmallows, sprinkle them on the top. Bingo! If you really, really want to go all out, you can squirt some whipped cream on the top. I don't care for that, but each to their own. My grandson loves hot chocolate. He loves it the way his mother makes it, and I think she makes it the same way I make it. So there you go. See? Don't even have to wait for it. Now you can go off and you can do it yourselves. All right. Anything else going on?
We can talk about it after you do your
No,
story.
no, no. Anything else going on? What else is going on?
Julie says, I was thinking after the healing yesterday, I once had a spiritual healing from Yorkshire Healers. The lady was small and slim. I went with back pain, and she said, how was that? I could feel a rippling down my spine. She said, yes, I was visualizing a waterfall going down your back. I've never forgotten it, and it felt very special.
Nice. I'd love to know who the Yorkshire Healers were, because my healing organisation was in Yorkshire, so I'm wondering if it's a connection there. That would be so interesting to know. But I'm so pleased. Yes, and visualization, as I said yesterday, visualization techniques are very, very important. They help the healer, because the healer has something to sort of focus on, and feels that they are adding to the process. And also, of course, we know that water is filled with energy. Waterfalls, when you go sit by water, whether it's a waterfall or the ocean, or whether it's a river that's running through, uh, energy, 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 and it's good energy because it's moving, and sort of all of that fabulous energy is moving and creating even more energy. So it's a great thing to be able to sit by, either by a river or a lake, something like that, because water is you know very crucial to the process sometimes. So anything else, Chris, before I begin my story?
Wayne responded, he's in Ontario. He also has a beautiful fireplace inside as well,
Oh,
but
nice.
he his really wants to go sliding and let the inner child out. And he also would rather drink tea than hot chocolate next to his fireplace.
Little bit of whiskey or a little bit of brandy in that tea will go down very nicely, Wayne. Just mentioning it, and yes, sliding. Do you mean? I think you either mean sort of sitting on one of those plastic things that they now make. We used to have them in Vermont. I bought them for all of my guests, and they go sliding down the hill. Or sledding is also a great thing to do. When we were kids, we used to go sledding. I loved going sledding. Don't mind going sledding at all. But yes, sliding down those slopes. Of course, that inner child. What? how gleeful, how joyful. Yeah, yes. Well, have fun. All right. So let's begin then our story. And as all good stories must begin, in my book anyway, once upon a time. So once upon a time, we're going back. Oh gosh, so many years. I can't tell you how many years we're going back now. I was just a young girl. I was just a very not quite so young. I had already met uh, my friend Nick Maguire, who, for those of you who've read my first book, The Eagle and the Rose, you will know that Nick was instrumental in helping me to discover um, how very strange I really am, right? And Mick was a healer, and he lived in Yorkshire, lived in Doncaster in Yorkshire, and he was very well known in the area, and he. Uh, One way or another became involved with me and with my let's say my awakening. I think that's the best way to put it. And so he would come to my house at least once, if not twice a week, and we would go to different churches together from time to time. And I would often go to his. He had a lovely little sanctuary where he would take his patients and give healing at his house, and I would often go there to visit with him. And um, I would take other people with me, and never in those days, never even considering that I was a healer at all. Never, I, I think because I was so sick for so many years, and in and out of hospitals, and having to deal with, injections and all that stuff going on, and then of course when I had my daughter being very ill and on literally 9 month bed rest. Um, I got to the point where I hated hospitals, didn't like sick people, didn't like being around sick people. I know. Uh, but this was my take on it, and I was young. And so I would very happily take people to Mick uh, for healing, but I would sit quietly um, to the side. Now, sitting quietly and doing nothing, of course, it was not the idea, but sitting quietly and in my own way, saying a prayer, and in my own way, trying to help Mick to do his work. In other words, sort of sharing my energy the best way that I could. So I was used to Mick with his healing. I was used to watching people give healing. I had by this time also met Paul Denham, who was an amazing healer. 30 years he'd been a spiritual healer, and he also helped me. Again, reading The Eagle and the Rose will tell you all about all of that stuff, so I'm not going to go into that. So sort of I'd been, involved at the time of this particular story, I'd been involved with healing for several months, if not a little longer. And so one night, Mick called me up, and he he said, "I'd like to bring someone to your house if that's okay with you." So I said, "Sure. What's going on?" He said, "Well, I'd like the family to meet you. This particular family, I'd like them to meet you, but they have a young girl who requires healing, and I wondered if I could bring them to your house and let them talk to you, and talk to you about the work that you do, and your take on things, basically. And then, of course, I'd like to give this kid some healing." So, sure, fine, that's fine. So he came over and he brought this family with him, and they were very nice. I don't remember too much about them, to be honest, but we sat and we chatted, and then at some point, Nick said, "Okay, I'd like to give healing." And as usual, as I always did when Nick was giving healing and I was present while he was giving healing, I would also sit there away from the patient and away from Mick, because that's his thing to do. But I would always sit quietly in my own little corner, and extend my energy and try the best that I could to help Mick, to give Mick some energy, and also to send my prayers towards, in this particular case, in this child. So we obviously, everything's quiet. Mick is doing his thing. Has a couple of people that help him. They are sitting on the far side of the room. It was quite a large room, so they were sitting at the far end of the room, away from me, and I was sitting quietly by myself on my sofa in the corner there, trying to be unobtrusive, trying not to get in the way, and just doing my own thing. So they were there, and I was sitting there, and head bowed, and saying my prayers, and trying to extend my energy, and to give as much as I could, and everything was quiet. Everything was, sort of still in the room, and I wasn't so much watching Nick. I was just head down and saying my prayers and asking for God's help and doing my bit in that way. And suddenly, out of the corner of my eye, I saw just a flicker of movement. And if I could describe, I was sitting on a sofa. It was quite a long sofa, and I was sitting at this far corner. And then, fairly close to the sofa, there was a coffee table between. And then there was a rocking chair, my rocking chair, which I still have to this day. And so the flicker of movement came from next to the rocking chair, and it was I ignored it at first, and then the second time I saw it, I made me lifted my head up, and I looked to see what was going on next to the rocking chair, and there, to my absolute astonishment and amazement, was a figure, perhaps somehow out of some biblical story, but there, standing by the rocking chair, was Christ. And yes, I know, you're going to think, are you kidding? What? No, that's not real. And I actually did a double take. I'm thinking, no, that's not, that's my imagination. And I looked again, and he was just standing there looking at me. And I think I have talked about this before, but I grew up knowing Christ. I'm not a stranger to Jesus at all, in any way, shape, or form, right? I know him really, really well. Now, a funny thing happened just yesterday when I was once again trying to get hold of the insurance company. Yes, I'll come back to the other story in a minute. But I was trying to get hold of someone at the insurance company. Once again, had been fobbed off. Yes, we'll call you in the next 48 hours, and nobody calls. And yes, oh yes, in the next 24 hours, we'll call you. No, nobody calls. And on this had gone. And so, in desperation, yesterday I called again with sending a little prayer. I really need some help with this. And I finally got hold of this guy, and I said, well, first of all, can I take your name so that I can call you back if you get cut off? And he said, yes, my name is Jesus. And I looked, and I smiled to myself, and I said to him, well, I'm really pleased because I can use help from Jesus. Whichever Jesus that might be, I can use help from Jesus anytime. And he laughed, and I laughed, because, of course, if you know anything about the name Jesus, if you're Spanish, you know Jesus is how you spell Jesus. So we laugh, because I'm always on the lookout for Jesus, because I grew up with him, and he is in my life. Don't expect him to be in anybody else's, but in my life he has been my savior over and over and over and over and over again in my life. So let's get back to the story. So here I am, and I'm sitting on the sofa, and Mick and his cohorts are doing their thing with this child and giving her healing, and I'm just doing my little prayer bit. And as I said, I look up, and then I have to do a double take because they're standing next to my rocking chair, large as life, in my room, as real as I am, as real as I was then, as real and as clear as you could imagine. Stood Jesus, and he was looking at me, and as I realized, it's in shock, realized it's it's really you, it's really you. And he smiled at me, and he nodded, and he looked to the child. He lifted his hands to me, and I looked to the child, and when I looked back, he was gone. As quick and as easy as that. That visit may have lasted, what, 2, 3 minutes? But it was as real and as clear as you could possibly get. I looked back to Mick. I looked back to the people who were working with him. There was no sign that they had seen anything. There was no sign that they'd felt anything. And of course, there's no noise. It was a very quiet and a very personal and a very amazing. You could call it a vision if you want, but to me, it was more than a vision. It was a reality. Jesus was in my living room, even if it was only for a few short minutes. He was there. And I think the nodding and the smiling was his confirmation that we were doing exactly the right thing. The healing carried on for a while longer, and when Mick had finished, I got up and I went to the child and I put my arms around this little thing and just knew how should I tell her? Should I tell her parents? What should I say? Jesus has visited you? They'd think I was crazy. But it was enough for me to know, and it was enough for me to be able to hold her and hug her and know that she had had one of the greatest gifts that we could possibly imagine would be given to us. And in her being in my house, I had had one of the greatest gifts that could possibly have been given, a visit from that amazing and wonderful and fantastic, the best and the most well-known healer of all time, Jesus Christ. Later, when we were by ourselves, I told Mick what had happened, and he smiled at me and he said, I think maybe somebody's trying to tell you here that you're on the right track. And maybe, Rosemary, it's time that you accept it, that you too can be a healer. It's time that you accept it, that this is something that is meant for all of us to do, not just for people like me, but for all of us. And I took that to heart, and it wasn't that much longer after that, maybe another year perhaps, when I opened my first healing centre in a tiny mining town in the middle of nowhere, again in the north of England, a little tiny town of Thorn. When we rented this place, we would rent it for just once a week, we rented it. There were two ladies who were not part of our organisation, but they were part of the organisation that that owned the building, and they became our beloved tea ladies, who still stay in connection with me, which I'm so thrilled. And so many years ago, and occasionally I get an email or a text or something from them to let me know they're still watching me, they're still watching over me, and they remember all of the patients who came through the doors. They remember all of my team of healers who voluntarily, with no charge whatsoever, would give healing to anybody who walked through our doors. It wasn't about making money. It wasn't about becoming famous. We were in this teeny tiny little mining village. Who knew that anybody would spot us? And of course, then from there, we had other healing centres as well. But I remember those two lovely tea ladies who just loved talking to the patients. We would take them into one room and give them healing, and then they'd go into what we started calling the tea room, which was sort of like, had tables and chairs, and they could get a cup of tea and they could get biscuits or whatever. And then after the healing was all done and dusted, they would wait for me to come out, and then all the patients remaining, which was most of them, they would sit around. We'd form some sort of a circle. They'd all sit around, and they'd have so many questions for me about healing, about what they had gone through, about their experiences. And we would have people say, just as we just had somebody tell us, I felt this shiver go down my back. We would have people telling us of their experiences and their feelings when they received healing. So I think healing somehow has become the theme, because we did our first healing session in for ages yesterday afternoon. Again, if you missed it, you can go to YouTube and check it out. But I think that healing has become perhaps a part of this December's uh, experience. And I remember very, very clearly, and very, very, as if it, even as if it was happening right now, and I've got shivers down my arm. I've got just cold shivers down my arm here, because I know that I'm feeling, even as I'm telling you this story, I still, oh, thank you. Yeah, I do. Sorry, this is a little bit unexpected in the story, but yes. So let me just tell you what is happening now. I'm so excited about this. So even as I'm talking to you and telling you this story, I can feel sort of this shivers down my arm, and the hands of Christ on my shoulders. Jeez, wow. Now, this story, when I saw that I do still have the rocking chair, sorry, give me a minute here, be a little bit taken aback by this. So this story that I just told you, gather myself together here, happened so many years ago. So many years ago. I was only in my mid-30s at the time, and I remember it so clearly and so strongly. And I remember very often, and as I've given healing to people over the years, yes, of course, I have great healing. I feel his hands on my shoulders very often when we're giving healing. And then sometimes I will feel the hands of Christ on my shoulders too. And it's an amazing, an incredible feeling, because you know that when you're giving healing, you're not alone when you're giving it. You have all of this fabulous and beautiful, incredible energy that you're able to share with so many people. I remember it as if it were yesterday, him standing by my rocking chair. If only for a moment I'm able to say, I have looked into the eyes of Christ as he stood in my living room and smiled at me, and I have felt his presence and his energy and his goodness and his purity. The end. Okay, that's my story for today. And apparently it's still going on around me. So, all right. So, Chris, let's go to the chat room, shall we?
Yes, Tracy had mentioned before you started your story, my therapist recommended your books, so it's a real pleasure to see you.
Oh, good. Tracy. I'm so glad you. Sorry. Yes, I did put my finger in there here and stir it, and then I did suck my finger. Hey, what can I tell you? It's a really This is tangerine juice, by the way, everybody. Tangerine and water and ice, of course. So, all right, Tracy, we're so pleased that you were able to join us, and it's so nice to be recommended. I do hope you're not disappointed in me, because you know you read all these books and you get an impression of this person, that you know, me at this point, but also when you meet people who are sort of well known, we have our impressions of them, don't we? And we have our impressions of them as we're reading about them and as we're reading their stories and so on. So I hope you're not too disappointed to see me actually sort of in the flesh, which is what we are, sort of in the flesh. But I'm very, very pleased that you were able to join us, and I'm very, very pleased that you were listening in, and hopefully um, giving yourself some healing and taking healing from me too.
The next is from Lorraine. Lorraine is asking, what does Jesus look like? So many pictures depict him as fair, but at that place of his birth, there are darker skinned people. So I'm curious.
Um, I'm going to say darker skin. There's, you know, I here's the thing: when people depict religious figures, I think, you know, when we think of light and goodness and all the rest of it, we think of golden hair and blue eyes. I don't know quite why we do that, but and people think that angels are all golden haired and fair skinned as well. So not true. Uh, so very not true. We've got all sorts of shapes and sizes, and of course, you know, Jesus was um, a Hebrew, dark skinned, dark dark hair, so on and so forth. But here's the thing: I don't think it matters how you visualize uh, these characters. I certainly don't think it matters how I visualize Jesus. I just absolutely know that he's there, and also very often, um, you know, when let's say, for instance, that he's dark haired, dark skinned, and so on. But when you see these unbelievably spiritual people, when I first saw the Virgin Mary, yes, and I've told that story before, so we won't go into that so much now. But very often they have this incredible aura, this incredible energy that surrounds them, and so it sometimes it's not easy to see them. Although that was not the case when I first saw the story that I just told you. But sometimes you see this glow, this aura, which is, and it's hard for you to actually see in fine detail the color of their skin or what have you, because this incredible aura that surrounds them can often distort or not perhaps clearly show you exactly uh, you know, what they look like, and it doesn't really matter, does it? It doesn't matter at all what we look like. It only matters that what we look like and who we are inside. I think that we can get so hung up sometimes on what a person looks like, and you can have the most beautiful, beautiful, beautiful looking creature that you've ever seen, a famous model or a handsome guy, whatever, and they can be the ugliest, ugliest thing inside. So, you know, I think we should not worry too much about what somebody looks like on the outside, but worry more about or be concerned with who they are on the inside. And when we see these amazing figures, when I see Jesus Christ, when I've seen the Virgin Mary, and when I've seen the many others that I've seen, I think it's much more about the energy that we see, and we sort of that is the most important thing. And usually the energy is beyond description. It's so amazing, so pure, and so beautiful. Chris, let's keep going.
Julia says, this is amazing. Thank you for the wonderful story. I love the Lord Jesus too. Thank you so much for sharing. Lots of love to you and everyone here.
Oh, thank you, darling. We appreciate that.
Lorraine says, love this. Any mention of Christ is so wonderful.
Well, don't let's forget that the majority of the world, uh, you know, um, Christianity was and is still. It's a faith. It's a belief that is compared to the world and compared to what people believe is a teeny tiny little part of what there is out there. However, it may be teeny tiny, but it's huge to me. Keep going, Chris.
Dean says, a few years back, I was in that state of partly being awake in bed, where I was in total relaxation, but still aware. I suddenly found myself sitting in a room. The room was yellow, and across the room, Jesus appeared. He smiled at me and then disappeared. I could tell this was not a dream, it was very real.
Oh, Dean, I'm so thrilled for you. I mean, these experiences, they seem to be so rare. It could be that people don't like to tell their stories because they're afraid they'll be laughed at or someone will think they're crazy. But they do seem these stories to be so rare, and it's such a shame. I wish everyone could have a similar experience, and I'm thrilled for you that you've had that great experience. And we know when it happens, don't we? We know it's not a dream. We know it's not our imagination. We know because it is so real for us. We know that it is a reality. Chris,
Annika saying about your story, it was beautiful.
thank you.
Randy says sincerely, thank you with sharing.
You're welcome. We love story time. We we have we have so much fun. It is true to say that it's not every time that I go out and about in this world of ours and we have experiences. But would you imagine that we would have an experience when we're sitting there, Chris and I, getting our feet done, our toes done of all things? We're sitting there and, we're just minding our own business and we're concerned with what colour nail polish should we have. We're so far from anything spiritual, or so we think, because we never ever far from spirit anything spiritual. It's always there and it's always around us. But there we are, and we're sort of just thinking, Chris has never been to a nail salon before. She's never had her fingernails done. She's got very fancy fingernails, I might tell you. I do my own, just so you know. I do my own here. I'm good. But I do like to have a pedicure from time to time, and so we're sitting there, and there are all these people around, and they're all having their pedicures. And there's some guy across from us, and he's there. He's an older guy. He's perhaps in his, I don't know, 60s or something. And he's having his feet done. And well, it is Florida, you see. We all wear sandals here, so we all, feet are. We like our feet to look nice, and there he is. And then he got up from his chair at one point, and he was done, and he got up, and as he walked by me, I said to him, "Can I just say I'm so disappointed?" He looked at me, he said, "You are?" I didn't know him, he didn't know me, but I talk to anybody and everybody. I said, "Can I say I'm so disappointed?" He said, "You are? Why?" I said, "I thought you'd at least go out with bright red toenails. Come on, it is Florida after all." And he laughed, and he said, "Well, look," he said, "my wife loves, my toes to be plain. My girlfriend, however, likes the red." And we laughed, and it was fun. You don't expect for all of a sudden someone like me to sort of be, not that I didn't give him a message. No, no, no. This story we'll tell you next week is far more interesting and intriguing than that. And it didn't even happen with the guy who was giving me a pedicure. It was, you know, this person sitting next to me, not quite knowing what was going on. Not one, she'd never been before, as I've said, and she had two people attending to her. It was like she was the queen here, sitting there, and everybody in attendance. And then all of a sudden, there was an absolute reason for why this happened. We shall tell you. I shall tell you that story, perhaps next Saturday. You never know. But it's true to say that you never know what is going to happen when you're around me, and I never know what's going to happen until it happens. But we do have a lot of fun when these things do happen. And when out of the blue, when you're having a pedicure, or when you're buying your Thanksgiving turkey, or when you're buying your chocolates, and nobody's looking at you, nobody can say to you, "You're not buying chocolates again, are you?" When you think you're on your own, and all of a sudden somebody like me comes along, and there you are, and there things happen. Yeah, we'll talk more about that next week. Chris, what else is going on there?
Julie says, how special to actually see Jesus. I saw the original Holman Hunt Jesus Light of the World painting recently
Oh, you did?
at, at Keble College in Oxford.
Yeah.
I got the picture from the Girls' Brigade when I was 7, yet it
Wow.
was great to see the original. It has a different meaning to me now. The door handle on the inside of the door, the wood, etc. A beautiful picture.
I know, and if you go back to well, however many centuries we go back, look at Da Vinci and well, all of those amazing painters, right? And they would paint these religious figures, and when you look at these figures, pretty much every one of these figures has a halo around. Uh, Sometimes it's a golden halo around the head. Sometimes they're painted with a light around them. Now, these pictures, remember these paintings were painted in the days before we talked about auras and before we sort of got into the scientific field of things, before we knew that energy exists in every living thing, before the days of kinetic cameras, before the days of Semyon and Valentina Kirlian, when they they produced the first Kirlian camera, which could photograph auras. So all of those centuries ago, when we had all these painters that would paint these halos or lights or what have you, what people didn't necessarily realize then, but I think sort of over the centuries, it's become acknowledged that when religious figures are painted, that they do have this, let's say, this halo or this golden light around them, this aura around them. Uh, as people were painting these things, these incredible painters, of course, were so sensitive and so aware, and they were even perhaps sometimes without even realizing they were seeing the aura or seeing the energy field of the aura that surrounds these religious figures as they were being painted. And it's amazing that we can go back centuries and centuries and see what we all know now to be real, because now, of course, now we can photograph energy thanks to Semyon and Valentina Kurlian, a Russian couple who developed Kurlian photography. I mean, thanks to them, we're now able to say, science is able to say, let's make clear, we we who knew or could see before science, before the Kurlians came into this developing this camera, we all know about auras and energy, those of us who could see, but now science knows, oh gosh, it's real. We can even photograph the energy of a leaf on a tree. Chris, keep going.
Lorraine says, you are so blessed, Rosemary.
I agree. Look, let me tell you, I do wonder, I have wondered from time to time throughout my life, what, you got to ask the question, why me? I couldn't tell you why me, but I'm so grateful it's me. I think that we're all blessed in one way or another. I think every single one of us has gifts. I think some of us have explored and discovered those gifts, and others of us have perhaps not yet dared or not been given the opportunity, but we all have something, a gift of some kind. It may not be necessarily, to be able to see or to hear those in the spirit world, but we all have gifts, and those gifts, once we learn about them and we develop them, we can share them with others. And I sometimes I hear people say, "Well, I'm nothing special. There's nothing special about me," and it makes me sad because every one of us has something special, a special quality about us. whether we accept it, whether we've learned what it is, or whatever. We are all special because we all have the light within us that was given to us when we were created as souls, and every single soul on this planet is a precious soul. So, never say, I'm not, well, there's nothing special about me, because there always is.
Maggie says, I feel Jesus when I become still in the early mornings on my left side after my prayers. As you spoke, I felt I had to call to him, feeling reassurance. I don't see him, but feel a solid, tall, powerful presence surrounding and warmth.
Nice. I love it. I love it. Chris, keep going.
Annika says, look up Akian's, Akiane, picture of Christ. Supposedly, that is what he looks like in her eyes and also to others who saw him in heaven.
Well, right. I mean, I will do that. But as I've said, we all have our own vision, and it doesn't matter. Certainly doesn't matter to me what somebody looks like on the outside. It's it's what's within that counts. And when you look at someone and you see someone, you know, um, I had, in fact, it's happened to me a few times over the last few weeks. We've had roofers and we've had people giving us estimates, and we've had all sorts of things going on, and different things with the neighbours. And at least two or three times we've had people say, uh, you know, they come in, they look at me, and then they look again, and I know it's not my beauty that they're astounded at. It's they sense something. People sense something. People see something, and not to give too much away about the the nail salon, but it was said there's something about her eyes. As soon as she walked in, I knew there was something. And we had a roofer come a couple of days ago. I knew there was, as soon as I saw you, I knew there was something different. People get a little bit spooked, or they just get curious because obviously they're not seeing me, what I look like. They're seeing and sensing the energy that comes with being around someone who does the work that I do. So it's not that we are more special, it's just that it's perhaps our energy is perhaps more pronounced. People become more aware of it and they don't even know why sometimes, but that's what happens. Keep going, Chris. I know we're coming up to time, but keep going. We have a few more minutes.
Yeah, Annika says, you are so right. Everyone has the love and light in us.
So while I think about it, I just want to mention again, because I did mention this at the beginning of the show, but those of you who come in later, we do want to mention, yes, we do have a webinar. It is on the 15th. It's on the 17th of December. So it's not this coming weekend, it's the weekend after. Um, and it is all about healing. And what do you do if you want to want to learn more about healing? What do you do? Where do you go if you want healing from someone? And what should you expect when you have healing from someone? And if you're a person who wants to be a healer, or if you are a healer but you want to enhance your energy, or you don't quite know how to enhance, or you want to protect yourself, or you don't want to wear yourself out or drain yourself, or so on and so forth, we are having our seminar on the 17th of December. As I said earlier, it seems as if I just told you a story about Christ. So that's all about healing as far as I'm concerned. And it just seems we did our healing show yesterday afternoon. And on it goes. So it does seem that December is a month of talking about healing, sharing healing. And on the 17th of December, if you go to my website, you will see what you need to do to get tickets for the webinar. I don't think they're that expensive. I'm not sure. I can't remember how much, but I think Chris has put something on the screen so that you can click on that, and that will take you to where you can get tickets to. I think it's Saturday. I want to say in the afternoon. I'm not sure though. I can't remember the time. Look, go find out. I'm not an encyclopedia. I can't remember these things. I'm getting old, and was going to say I'm getting old and wizened. No, not really. No, I don't mean that. But we are doing on the 17th of December. We are having a healing webinar. I'm really looking forward to doing that with you all. So if you want to check it out, please go to the website rosemaryaltea.com and you'll find out all of the information. Also, we've had a number of you who have said, "What's all this about the newsletter?" So we say this every month. If you want December's newsletter, which has already gone out to those people who subscribe, you do have to subscribe to get the newsletter. And I know people don't like subscribing. I don't like subscribing either. If it says subscribe, I'm wondering what am I going to get into? We do not send out, we do not inundate you with emails every day. No, we do not. We only will send out a couple, maybe 3 a month. But one of those is our newsletter, which Chris gets everything all together, and then um, this month, what have I written about? I've written about the joys and why we should look on the positive side of things and so on. And I talked a little bit about November and all of the stuff that went on in November, both the negative and the positive, but there's far more positive for me to focus on and to concentrate on. If you want December's newsletter and you missed the boat, you didn't get it, if you email us at Rosemary at rosemaryaltea.com, or if you email Chris, Kris, at rosemaryaltea.com and say, please, could you send me the newsletter? We will be very, very happy to send you December's newsletter. And if you want to sign up for the newsletters every month, as I say, we will not, I promise you, we will not inundate you. We'll not advertise, we'll not send stuff out that isn't necessary. We'll just keep you updated. The newsletter keeps you updated on what we're doing, what we're planning, and so on. So if you want that, just email us. Please, can you send me the newsletter? And if you want to say also, how do I subscribe? You go to the website, you click a little button, and that's it. And it doesn't cost you anything. It's as simple as that to do. All right, Chris, anything else going on? Because I know we're very, very close to time now. Anything else before we close?
No, Rosemary.
Well, let me just say then, thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed our story. Of course, I enjoyed living it and being a part of it. And I also, how lucky for me, as I'm telling this story, that I feel Christ standing beside me and even his hands on my shoulders. Oh, gosh, how amazing that was. Yes. So thank you for joining us. I'd like to say thank you to Chris. Great facilitating there, Chris, once again. And of course, last but by no means least, my daddy and my brother have just come in to say hi to me. And I'm sort of waving, giving them a little wave. And please, 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 our Thursday morning show will be next week. The Spirit World Sees All. We'll be popping in and out, sometimes unexpectedly, yes, because we do that. And if you subscribe, you'll get a little notice pop up when I'm going to be on live, and it'll say Rosemary Altea is coming live in 2 minutes, or whatever it says, whatever it does. So if you want that, subscribe. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. A special thanks to my spirit guide, Gabriel, who as always is by my side, even holding my hand as I'm speaking to you all. Blessings to all of you. Please, everybody, have a very, very blessed rest of the day and have a very blessed weekend. Bye bye, everybody.